The Dead Redditors subreddit is exactly what it sounds like, a place for posts about Reddit users who have died. Sometimes these are from friends or family members, or from other fellow Redditors who randomly stumbled across their profiles. I already covered this subreddit in a previous video, but wanted to revisit it as it is interesting, albeit very depressing. Anyway, let's investigate. If you enjoy internet mysteries and generally disturbing content, feel free to subscribe and turn on notifications for more content like this. If you're interested in supporting the channel, you can become a Ko-fi member or a channel member to gain access to uncut videos and other perks, or you can leave me a tip by clicking the thanks under this video. Thanks to anyone who considers this. This video will centre around death from a number of different causes, including murder, terminal illness, and drugs. Viewer discretion is advised. You can click the link in the description to become a Ko-fi member and watch a longer, uncut and ad-free version of this video, which features a whole extra entry that was unsuitable for this cut. Antonio Zero created his Reddit account in November 2018 and since then was active in various different subreddits, often answering questions in the likes of r/ask and The 10th Dentist, and posting memes in others. The last post he ever made, excluding comments, was on the Onions subreddit, which is for the Onion Router, a browser used to access the dark web. It was titled, "Can anyone get on Bohemia?" which I'm guessing is a site to buy illegal drugs from. The post read, "Dark.fail has no links and taxi links aren't working for me. I just want to get on so I can finalize an order so the seller can get paid, potentially. I'm planning to move to a different market after all this crap, but I'd like to release funds to the seller because they delivered as promised and I want to give them the best chance to get paid. Is there anywhere else to get links that work? Taxi links take me to capture and whatnot, but doesn't get through to actual site. Maybe the links are fine, but my connection just sucks." I've never been on the dark web, so honestly I'm not sure what dark.fail or taxi links are, but I gather that Antonio ordered drugs from this site, they were delivered, and now he's trying to pay the seller after the site went down. According to one of the comments, this happened because a rogue admin began siphoning Bitcoin out of their wallets, leading to vendors and users complaining about missing deposits and failed withdrawals. Anyway, I digress. Antonio was still commenting on other people's posts until February 2024, so I guess he figured out the problem then moved to another market, but that decision would eventually prove fatal. On the 1st of August 2025, a user made a short post on the Dead Redditors subreddit titled RIP Antonio Zero. It read, "Sorry to say my partner OD'd on some whack substance he got online. Someone contaminated his drugs with fentanyl. RIP to my baby's father. So young, only 28. OP clarified in the comments that Antonio had ordered morphine which had been spiked with fentanyl. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that is similar to morphine but 100 times more potent. It's even 50 times more potent than heroin, so you can see how it would be easy to overdose when you think you're just taking morphine and it's actually spiked with fentanyl. Just 2 milligrams, which is the equivalent of 10 to 15 grains of table salt, is considered a lethal dose, so there only has to be a tiny amount of contamination to kill someone. It's kinda eerie to see Antonio posting about buying drugs from the dark web, knowing that that's what eventually led to his death. The sad part is, he had made posts in the past asking how to inject safely, so he was clearly conscious of the risks, but did want to minimize them. He was also volunteering at a children's hospital, so he must have been a caring person. It seems like he died shortly after his final comments in February 2024, as his partner first posted about losing him on the 1st of March, then made another post saying it was the funeral on the 3rd of March. More recently, in August 2025, the day after the dead Redditors post, she made another post on a different subreddit in which she mentioned her fiancé, so I'm glad she was able to find love again, but it sounds like she'll never forget Antonio. King of Cats, real name Linda, created her Reddit account in April 2010 and was pretty active from the off. She worked in a pet store for a while and seemed to love animals. She herself had a cat and a snake that she posted about. Her last ever comment was on an Ask Reddit thread titled, "What do you own that most people don't?" Her reply was, "I have a job at Blockbuster." That was in April 2014, around the time she got into a relationship, one that would lead to her tragic death just a few months later. In January 2015, there was a dead Redditors post titled, "Farewell, King of Cats." It read, "Linda Bauer was murdered this past September, but I just discovered this sub and I'm still grieving. It's really hard to let go. I can't sleep lately and I'm always exhausted. I haven't gone out or been social since New Year's. I'm a recluse at the moment. She was my best friend. I've known her since we were both kids, and she was someone who I always counted on being there for me. We loved each other and probably would have ended up together if the opportunity came up, but we didn't because of distance and me being in the military and all that. She was amazing, one of those people that was kind but brutally honest and had the power to change the world. She truly is amazing and was an absolute wonderful human being. She saved my life, quite literally, when back in 2012 I tried to take my own life on 3 separate occasions. She called me on a hunch and talked me out of it. She knew I was in trouble. I planned on paying her back someday threefold, but now I can't. It's the worst feeling in the world, knowing you can never repay your best friend with your life. I should have visited her after my deployment, but I didn't because she was with her boyfriend at the time and didn't want to be around that. I wanted her for myself, and we both had planned on getting intimate, but because of him being there and my own selfishness, I didn't. And then he killed her. My biggest regret. Wherever you are, Linda, I miss you and can't wait to see you again. I know we are both atheists, but sometimes I wish there was a heaven just to lessen the pain. I miss your singing. I want to hear you sing me to sleep like you used to." This post gives you the gist of what happened to Linda, but I found a more detailed story on victimsforjustice.org written by her mother, so I'll read that now. On September 10th, 2014, my 19-year-old daughter Linda was brutally strangled to death by her boyfriend David Thomas. Linda worked at a pet zoo in Eagle River when she met David Thomas around March and started dating around the end of April 2014. He was several years older than Linda, but they shared a common passion for animals, specifically reptiles. Linda had recently been SA'd by another individual earlier in the year, but she did not report it. When she met David, she was very nervous about getting into any relationship after what she had recently experienced. Still, they decided to date. Their relationship was okay at first, but in a very short time they began to have issues and several verbal fights. David had problems with alcohol and marijuana, not sure about heavier drugs, and when they would get into a fight, Linda would try to distance herself from him, at which point he would begin constantly messaging and calling her phone. He even texted and called me. In these messages and calls, he would range from sadness and pleading to anger and name-calling to attempting to get sympathy by mentioning he would himself. Anything to try and manipulate Linda into his compliance. My husband and I addressed our concerns with David in one-on-one conversations and let him know that if he ever laid a hand on her, there would be hell to pay. We also asked if he had a criminal history. He did tell us he had spent some time in jail in Montana for assault on a police officer, claiming he was drunk at the time. He claimed he had learned his lesson and was working to better himself. We gave him the benefit of proving himself to us and Linda that he would straighten up his act, but told him we would be keeping an eye on him. The night before Linda was murdered on September 9, 2014, she had decided she was going to end the relationship. Linda took him home. He lived with his brother, sister-in-law and their 2 children, and went to her friend's house. Her friend later told us that while at her house, David was constantly messaging her phone and telling her that if she didn't come back, he was going to kill himself. Linda succumbed to his manipulation and went over to his house where he strangled her in the late morning hours of September the 10th. He placed a lifeless body in the backseat of his car and drove around town for several hours that day. He later confessed to his brother what he had done and turned himself in. He met with the police in the parking lot of Walgreens in Eagle River. During the investigation, we learned more details about David's assault on a police officer in Montana. He actually attacked the officer with scissors, and in the officer's self-defense, they attempted to tase him, which failed. A second officer missed while attempting to shoot David. Another use of the taser finally allowed for David to be taken into custody. The reason for the interaction between police and David is that the police were responding to a 911 call reporting domestic violence and violation of a domestic violence protective order. The cops were responding to a domestic violence call. We were notified by police in the very early hours of September 11, 2014 that Linda had been murdered. The moments after that announcement continues to be a blur to me to this day. We very well could have been told that there was help for us through VFJ and Office of Victims' Rights, but neither my husband nor I can remember. There were no calls made offering legal assistance outside the DA's office. I was not handed an information card with names and phone numbers of VFJ or OVR, nothing. I can't stress enough the importance of having someone there at the time the police arrive. At the very least, a call within a day or two would be vital. Victims have enough pain and struggle to endure without the stress of understanding the next steps in the legal process. This devastated me. This devastated my family. It's one thing to lose a loved one from sickness or even an accident, but at the hands of another person was unimaginable. There is no good that can come from this. However, I now position myself to be an advocate to see change to our state's criminal justice system, and I work to be a voice for other victims and their families. After Linda's death, we were left to basically fend for ourselves. There was no one there to help answer our questions or guide us through the legal process. It was over a year before we realised there was help for victims and their families, help through Victims for Justice and the OVR. We were able to receive compensation for lost wages and had the support of the VFJ staff. They sat with us and supported us through the difficult court appearances and gave guidance when it came to legal support. We also began to attend monthly meetings with other families of violent crimes and continue to do so even 5 years since my daughter's death. This support group is instrumental in the grieving process. Because of VFJ, we feel safe to share our pain, frustration, anger, and we have found a sense of connection with other victims and their families. This whole story is just infuriating. It sounds like Linda was young, naive, and impressionable, and that's how she ended up with David in the first place. But then she finally came to her senses and ended the relationship, only to feel bad and go back when he threatened to hurt himself. Let this be a lesson to you that if you're ever in a situation like this, do not go back. Chances are that person is just trying to manipulate you and wouldn't actually do it. But even if they did, that would not be your fault for making a decision to better your own life. David was 28 at the time of the murder. He had much more life experience and he knew exactly how to manipulate Linda, despite the fact that it sounds like she had a good support system around her. He eventually pled guilty to second-degree murder and was given a 75-year sentence with 25 years suspended, meaning he'll spend 50 years in prison and 10 years on probation. This was after he took a plea deal. I'm not a lawyer or a cop, but I don't even get why he was offered a plea deal. It seems a pretty clear-cut case, and he even confessed. 50 years in prison is not enough, given that he likely took many more years than that from Linda. I'm going to end this story with another post about Linda that I found on the 2X chromosomes subreddit. It's a bit long, but it gives some more details on her and highlights how good a person she was, so it's well worth hearing. One of my best friends in the world, Linda Bauer, was murdered by her boyfriend. I wish everyone could know how amazing she was. I met Linda Bauer online in October 2013, playing online video games of all places. We instantly hit it off as we had so much in common, well except for location and age. She lived in Alaska and I lived in Florida. She was also just 18 and I was much older. She was the little sister I never had. We talked on Kik almost every night. I learned her amazing story. She struggled with her parents' divorce, depression, and gender identity. I helped her through tough times and she helped me through some as well. My mother passed away from cancer at a young age, and her devotion to her mum and her inner strength helped me come to grips with my mum's death. Linda was incredibly kind, always cheered me up with stories. She loved animals, raising snakes, cats, mice, other random reptiles. One of her favourite pets, a majestic cat named Mufasa, had died just a year or so before. He was still basically a kitten, and that had been hard on her too. As a gift, I commissioned a drawing of a picture of her and Mufasa from Reddit. Linda suffered a traumatic experience early this year with a man and struggled mightily to come to grips with her fears and weaknesses. We talked for many hours about what happened to her and how she had the strength to overcome. Eventually she did and met a new man and began dating. Unfortunately, the new boyfriend meant less time for me and I didn't talk to her much anymore, but always tried to check to make sure she was doing okay. She went to therapy to overcome her demons and appeared on the right track. Then suddenly I find out this man, this boyfriend of 4 months or so, murdered her. This despicable filth of a human being took one of the planet's brightest stars away from her family and friends. I wish I'd known more about him, but we lost touch and I'll forever regret not trying harder to stay in contact. I have so much rage against this person and there's little I can do. Most of her Alaskan friends don't even know who I am or how close Linda and I became, so I have little support to grieve her death or to provide support for the ones there that loved and cared for her so much. Linda Bauer was truly one of the most amazing individuals I have ever known or will ever know. I only knew her less than a year, but the impact she had on my life is everlasting. For a time she was an avid Reddit user, king of cats. Violence against women sickens me. I would love to make a charitable donation in her name to a domestic violence charity. Please guide me in that direction so I can try to honour her and make some good come out of this horrible situation. Thank you for reading this. I am crushed and devastated and feel like I let her down that I didn't see this possibility. I stare at her Facebook or text message and can't believe there is no longer a person on the other end. I cry for her mother and friends who loved her dearly. I hope the world can know how wonderful she was and that somehow this tragedy can prevent another in the future. Thank you for any assistance. With love, Aidan. Edit. I want to thank everyone for some truly inspiring and heartfelt replies. I had several reasons for doing this. The first was I was tired of seeing the media stories about her death, and every one of them provided details on his life and his misdoings, and frankly I was sick of it. Where was the details on her life? I wanted people to know more about the person that was taken away from us, an incredible, giving person that was loved by many. Secondly, I wanted to illustrate how deep a connection can be made with someone just as an online friend. We talked voice-playing games, but primarily we chatted via text for hours on end. And even though it was a short time, hours of conversation a day adds up and you really learn about someone to almost the deepest level possible. Lastly, a bit of a selfish one, I am alone in my grief. I don't know her real friends and family, they don't know me. I've reached out but I haven't got much back and that's understandable. I feel like an intruder almost, and I know it's way harder on them, but I loved her too and I want to help in any way I can. And by posting this, you guys helped me as I learned of others that knew her like I did, Smalls907 being an amazing human being and helping me out, and your countless wishes and condolences. I've received some of the most incredible private messages, and naturally some of the worst, but they're easily ignored, and I treasure the great messages I have received, and I hope I have made new online acquaintances. Linda Bauer was an incredible person that suffered a fate none of us should endure. Her life was difficult, but despite that, she made all of those around her feel special and important. But as I look back, it wasn't all those around her that was special, it was Linda herself. And as I see people saying they knew her from all over the world, online acquaintances like me, there's a little piece of Linda everywhere. Here in Florida, over in Australia, in New York. I will miss you forever. I love you, Aiden. SadPlant1870, real name Jake, was active on Reddit for about 2 years, and during that time only made 9 posts. The first couple were about window tinting and bushcrafting on the Vagabond subreddit, which seemed to be where he was most known. In May this year, that's also where he announced that he was dying. He made a post titled, "Cancer Took a Turn." It read, "I was diagnosed with cardiac sarcoma back in February 2025, and it seemed decent enough that they may be able to help. I requested to not know how it would be treated and that the info be passed to my sister who has been watching over me recently. Late April, it took a turn when I did a re-evaluation, saying I needed to be sent to a different place in order for further testing. In order to keep the story short, I ain't gonna get into it all, but the bottom line is, I have 4-ish months to live if my math is right from when I was diagnosed to when it was re-evaluated, and I've decided I'm taking that trip I had once posted a long time ago in here. I'ma be up in northern Minnesota in the remainder of my days in the woods, just bushcrafting and doing redneckery things like I used to do, and I just wanted to say it was awesome to be able to see some of y'all's stories, and to be able to share some insight on boat hopping in a previous post I made. Thanks for the everything, y'all. Stay safe out there, and if you have any tips, I don't leave for another 2 weeks, so send them my way. Sorry if this seems kinda sappy or weird in any way. I'm not the best at telling stories and crap." Cardiac sarcoma is a rare type of cancer that starts in the heart, in the muscle, fat or blood vessels. The tumours are aggressive and spread quickly. They can block blood flow, causing symptoms like chest pain, swelling and shortness of breath. Survival rates are pretty low, with 47% of patients surviving 1 year and just 16% surviving 3 years. So unfortunately, Jake didn't really stand much of a chance, and the worst part is, he was only 19 when he was diagnosed. He seemed to have come to terms with it though and spoke surprisingly optimistically in the comments, stating that although he wishes he had a few more months, it'd be awesome to go out on his own terms in a winter wonderland. He also said, quote, "I plan on milking all the fun out of life as I can whilst living my dream. Better to die happy than to live sad is my motto." Sadly, his plan to spend the time he had left in the woods never transpired. Less than 2 months later, he posted a photo of himself in a hospital bed with the title, "Cancer Took a Turn, Again." The post read, "So some of y'all may remember me, but I'm the kid that had a few months to live and then decided to go back into the woods. Well, that didn't work out. Ended up being hospitalized over a damn heart attack, so that's my little updates. Send y'all's prayers and y'all's best quotes to put on my grave, LMAO. No, this isn't for attention, just figured I'd give an update, y'all. Just out of respect, I blocked faces, including mine. I hate mine being on the internet for the most part." And that was the last post he ever made. Just 6 days later, his sister posted an update that was then shared on the Dead Redditors subreddit that read, "Hey y'all, this is Jake's sister. I don't know if he disclosed his name or anything, but he asked I post in here on his account when he passed, but he wanted y'all to know he'd truly appreciated y'all and loved y'all. He said to say the other day that he was going out on his own terms and drunk, and he damn well did that. He ripped a Benjamin multiple times and had a few drinks I snuck in before I left. I left around 8 and he passed at 8:26. I knew it was going to be the last time I saw him, but hey, he did what he loved, so... He also said to say to anyone who wants to raise a toast to beating cancer because he beat it on his own terms. Thank y'all so much for the support. Make the post a spoiler tag because I'm just funny like that. And by the way, I'll haunt y'all when the lights go out. Peace and love. It's good to know that Jake's final moments were probably as good as they could have been given the situation, and he managed to keep his sense of humour until the end. This story serves as a reminder to pursue your dreams as soon as you can. Don't wait around because you never know how much time you have left. I want to finish this story with a comment on one of Jake's posts that I really hope he saw before he died. Quote, 80% of Americans live within 100 miles of where they grew up. Most never travel, never take risks, never break from the safety of what they know. You have probably lived more than most. It's not the years, it's the mileage. Indiana Jones. I hope this isn't the end of your adventure, but if it is, at least you've had one. Feeling Method 419, real name Derek, only ever made 2 posts on Reddit, though he may have used another account, as he does state in one of the posts that he's using a throwaway. His first post was on the r/Volt subreddit with a photo of some tyres in the back of his car, and his final one was on the 9th of June 2025 on the skydiving subreddit, titled Banned from the Local DZ. It read, Throwaway account. I started base half a year before I started skydiving AFF, and thus have about 5:1 object to plane ratio. I was doing my AFF level 6 jump last week where I was jumping a new landing pattern, overshot and had a low turn. The DZO pulled me aside and given my base antics and that low turn, banned me from jumping there and from his rigging services. There's about 4 other drop zones around, closest is about an hour away, compared to 20 to 30 minutes here, where I could finish my AFF, so that shouldn't be much of an issue. I know this is typically how people die, base without a brain, however it's what I've done. Feel free to roast me. Any tips on what I should do next or advice? I plan to get my license, go to my first base event later this year, and give it a year or so before I come back from exile. Blue skies. Edit, 12 skydives, 58 base jumps. For anyone like myself who isn't familiar with skydiving terminology, BASE is an acronym that stands for Buildings, Antennas, Spans and Earth, and it refers to when people jump from a fixed point rather than an aircraft. This is much more dangerous than normal skydiving because of the much lower altitudes that give divers less time to deploy their parachute and in turn less time to recover from a poor exit or equipment malfunction. There is also just a single parachute, so no backup if it fails, unlike skydiving in which people use 2. Because base jumping is much less regulated than skydiving, those who do it tend to be less experienced, as Derek inevitably was when he started. He'd only skydived 12 times, and you need to complete a minimum of 25 jumps to get certified. As he admitted in the post, he made a stupid mistake the most recent time he tried base jumping, and he even said, "I know this is typically how people die." If only he knew that should have been a warning to himself. In July 2025, there was a post on Dead Redditors that read, Feeling Method 419, Derek, died base jumping recently. A few weeks before his death, he posted on r/skydiving about being banned from his local drop zone for pulling an unsafe move. Derek had started base jumping before he had even learned to properly skydive. For those who are unfamiliar, base jumping is extremely more high risk and dangerous than skydiving. The natural progression is to become an experienced skydiver, then moving your way into base, with many skydivers never even trying base because it's so risky. Derek ignored this advice and started base jumping first. His inexperience was evident to anyone with experience jumping, which I won't get into here. His antics got him banned from his skydiving drop zone. As you can see in the thread, many skydivers tried to get through to him on how dangerous his decisions were due to his complete inexperience. Unfortunately, he did not seem to take that advice to heart and ended up dying on a base jump. According to the base fatality list, he was jumping from an inadequate spot, relatively low antenna with lots of lines and a poor landing area. Paired with his inexperience operating/packing his chute, his demise seemed inevitable. The base fatality list website provides a few more details, the most shocking of which being that Derek was only 19 years old when he died, and the accident happened only 4 days after his final Reddit post. Here are the other details on the site. Derek's girlfriend reported him missing after not hearing from him for 6 hours and explained he went to jump an antenna by himself. He was found by search and rescue at the bottom of the antenna with partial canopy out. About the object. The object is a 190-foot tall antenna in the eastern foothills of San Jose. It is not beginner friendly by any means and may not be jumpable at all. It is supported by 3 guy wires and is surrounded by trees, fences and power lines. There is one slopey open field to the southwest of the antenna that may be a viable landing zone. The structure has a lot of antennas mounted to it, making this object very snaggy. One such antenna extends 8 foot out of the structure towards the open field and sits 165 feet above the ground. The structure of the object may be too narrow to climb inside and lacks platform to stand on. Climbing it outside and setting up a static line while hanging from its side would be a significant added risk. 2 cameras point at the antenna. It is unclear at this point what direction and what height Derek jumped from. Derek had performed 12 skydives over the last 12 months and never graduated from AFF. Just 1 week before his death, Derek did one last skydive which ended with a very low 90+ degrees turn under canopy. He miraculously landed fine and got out of it uninjured. When the DZO and AFF instructors talked to him about how dangerous that last maneuver was, Derek seemed attentive and open to feedback. Regardless, he was banned from the DZ. Base jumping. It is unknown at this stage how exactly Derek had gotten access to a base rig. It appears that Derek had gotten into base jumping on his own with no mentor or specific training. It is suspected that he had been base jumping for several months and had performed approximately 59 base jumps. While he had learned a fair number of things through his own research, there were huge gaps in his theoretical knowledge and skills that he seemed oblivious to. Some examples are presented below. Objects choice. The objects Derek had chosen to jump off were inadequate for his experience level, unforgiving bridges, low illegal antennas and cranes, etc. One such object is the Bixby Bridge, where he had multiple mishaps, including a cliff strike just a month before his death. The LZ at this bridge is surrounded with a creek and the ocean, which makes it a particularly dangerous object for someone who does not know how to swim like Derek. There are plenty of more forgiving objects that are better suited for learning to base jump, such as the Perrine Bridge in the US and the Kanfanar Bridge in Croatia, for example. Gear selection. Derek was jumping an older piece of equipment at a questionable wing loading, 0.56. He had been jumping without a tailgate until he was advised to use one. Deployment technique. Derek did not know how to pack a parachute and was exclusively performing unpacked jumps, especially rollovers. His rollovers were regularly performed under inadequate wind conditions, tailwind, and very poorly executed, off-axis front flip, line twists, toggle inadvertently unstowed, etc. Canopy piloting. Derek's canopy piloting skills were much too low for the objects he had chosen to jump. Lack of spatial awareness, poor landing accuracy, slow reaction time to toggles, etc. Derek took a packing class from a reputable base school just 1 week before he died. Upon inspection of Derek's rig, the base instructors caught 2 rigging mistakes related to line continuity. As can be seen in his jump videos, 2 risers are twisted. Derek received help with re-rigging his lines properly. The 3-ring assemblies were properly assembled and correctly oriented for this type of risers. Derek had lied about his lack of skydiving experience, and a lack of packing skills was apparent during the class. Derek was advised to be patient with packing and to go to the Perrine Bridge to get more experience. So Derek's death was entirely preventable, ideally by avoiding base jumping in the first place, but at least if he had more experience, he would have made better decisions. The site actually recommends doing at least 200 skydives before even attempting base jumping, yet Derek was only 19 years old and had done no more than 12 skydives. His death is tragic, but looking at the comments he made, it seems he always knew it could come with every jump he made, and he still chose to do it, so the only consolation is that he went out doing what he loved. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts in the comments, plus any topics you might like me to cover in the future. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. Huge thank you to my Ko-fi members and channel members whose names are on screen now. I really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time in a new video.